I'm Jody from CariClub. Nice to see all of you. Welcome again to our CariClub webinar. It's 2 minutes past the hour, so we'll get started. And again, thank you so much for joining. We wanted to host another webinar, especially given the situation that's going on right now, and things going into the second phase of opening up, communities opening up, businesses opening up. I think we wanted to go back to basics and really create an environment where we can all share our insights and lessons learned. And so today the webinar will be simplifying the transition to a virtual associate board. And we have some great panelists that are joining us today from Keene, New York, City Harvest, New Door Ventures. And because we just are so excited to share information and provide this, we also have a special speaker that will be joining us, Jane Deering from Deloitte. She is the co-founder and leader of the Center of Excellence in Philanthropy at Deloitte. So she'll be able to share her insights as well. But before we get started, just a few housekeeping things on our end. As these panelists share their amazing insight and lessons learned, I'm sure a lot of questions will pop up. So please, if you have a question, go ahead and post it in the Q&A section, and then we'll address it once we get to the Q&A section at the end of the webinar. And that being said, I'd love for Roden Monrose, the CEO of CariClub, to just speak a few words about who we are. Roden, why don't you take it away?
Hi, thank you all so much for joining us today. I'm looking forward to this webinar. We, through our communications with many of the nonprofits on our platform, some of the things that we've heard from them is that they would like some more guidance around a couple of things. One, being able to get more staff so that they could do the good work that they're doing already. And another thing we heard is that fundraising is definitely a constraint for most organizations. So our goal is to host a series of webinars to address some of the issues that will help nonprofits kind of navigate this pandemic and serve the communities that they're working in. One of the things that came up a lot was that nonprofits wanted to figure out ways to engage their board, especially in a remote world. So the idea behind this webinar is to talk about any sort of like best practices and hear about some success stories about nonprofits that have been able to do that well. And we are going to share that with you today. So looking forward to that. So a little bit about CariClub. If you will, scroll to the next page. So CariClub is a platform that's designed to match young professionals with associate board roles. That's our primary focus. We work with a few companies that you'll see in a second, and they see this as a really important, valuable experience for their employees from a leadership development point of view. And you'll hear some of that actually today with some of the nonprofits and their experience with their associate boards. Yeah, so we make that whole process as easy as possible, and we're looking forward to working with as many nonprofits that are interested in getting young professionals from these companies who are very eager to work with you and join your board and roll up their sleeves to help out in any way they can. So these are some of the firms that we work with. We have a lot of clients in the financial services industry, but we also have clients in legal services. We have David Spolk as a client in Sidley Austin. We work with a few private equity firms as well, and consulting. We're excited to have Jane join us today from Deloitte, one of our clients, and they have done, and Jane will speak a little bit more about that. They've done a lot to build some resources and knowledge around how about nonprofit effectiveness, and so she will be able to share a lot of that with you. So on that note, I'm going to bow out and leave this to the professionals. Thank you all again for joining us today.
Thank you for that, Rodin. And like he's saying on that note, we'll leave it to the professionals. So without further ado, again, we have Keen New York. From that organization, we have Amanda France, the Executive Director, and Eddie Cassis, Associate Board President. Amanda, Eddie, I don't know if you guys can do a little wave so everyone knows who you are. And from City Harvest, we have Suzanne Chipkin, Individual Giving Officer, and Greg Bouquet, who's the Generation Harvest Chair. And New Door Ventures out in the Bay Area, Mariah Gonkaroff, Development Associate, as well as Alyssa Taylor, their Associate Board Co-Chair. And so we'll do just a quick round of intros from each of them and then start sharing our lessons learned and insights. Amanda, Eddie, do you guys want to take it away?
Sure, I'll start. Well, thanks so much for having us. We're really excited to be here and really excited about the connection that we've had with CariClub. So Key New York is actually a national nonprofit that started in 1992, and our New York affiliate started in 2008. And we provide programs of exercise, fitness, and recreation to young people with disabilities. All of our programs are free. Some of the unique features of Keen are that we work with children with all different types of disabilities. So we work with children on the autism spectrum, children who have physical disabilities like cerebral palsy, really just the full spectrum. And the way that we're able to do this is by pairing volunteers that we train to work one-to-one with the children. So in 2017, we really wanted to start kind of diversifying our fundraising efforts and our brand awareness. And that is where we decided to launch an associate board. And the associate board for us has been incredibly effective in really just bringing in new people to our organization and also in our fundraising efforts.
Great. Thank you. And Eddie, I think you're a CariClub alum as well.
Yeah, and just as a quick intro, Eddie Casas here and president of the associate board. I started with Keen actually back in March 2018 through CariClub, and I became president last summer, so coming up on a year now. And like Amanda said, it's been important, the associate board in the grand scheme of the entire organization, because we serve to kind of further the mission amongst young professionals. And, you know, every year we set our goals and we aim to hit them. Obviously this year there's been challenges with the pandemic, but that's why it's important that we transition to online as quickly as we have.
Great, thank you for that, Eddie. And up next is City Harvest, Suzanne and Greg.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Jody, and to everyone at CariClub for having us. We're really happy to be here, and we love partnering with you guys. We are New York City's first and largest food rescue organization. So we take food that would otherwise go to waste, and we deliver it to the people who need it most. Pre-March 2020, that was about 1.2 million people. I am sure many of you have been reading about the skyrocketing need for food across the country and specifically in New York City. So the rates of food insecurity have just astronomically increased in the last 12 weeks or so. We say 1.2 million on this, you know, and on our messaging right now, it is likely somewhere between 2 and 3 million New Yorkers who are struggling to put food on the table. So this has been a very eventful time for us as we have rapidly scaled our operations, you know, within social distancing and CDC guidelines to get food out as efficiently and safely as possible. But we are just breaking all of our records to get as much food out as we can just to meet the need. And we work within the 5 boroughs. Our food comes from everywhere, but the folks that we serve are in New York City. And, you know, now we're seeing more people come out than ever before, and just people who have never had to rely on emergency food. So that's a little bit about our work. There's a lot more to say, but we'll leave that for another time. Generation Harvest is our incredible group of young professionals that just mobilizes in incredible ways, never more so than the last few weeks, to support our mission. They lead initiatives, events, campaigns, and do a lot of just fundraising and awareness raising for City Harvest. They are led by our fearless Greg Buhay, who I'm so happy is joining me today. And it is just a fantastic, super passionate group of people. And we definitely are, looking for new members and excited to expand our reach. So happy to speak a little bit to the CariClub community today. Greg, is there anything you want to add?
No, I think that's a great recap. We've obviously seen a huge outpouring of support for City Harvest initiatives, and the junior board has stepped up in such a big way. So I'm excited to talk about how we transitioned from our prior fundraising models to what we're doing now later on in the call.
Great, thank you, Greg. And next, New Door Ventures, Mariah and Alyssa.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to share our experiences with you. So I'm Mariah. I am the Development Associate for New Door Ventures. We're based in San Francisco, but operate throughout the Bay Area. At New Door, we believe that a job can change a life. So we work to support 16 to 24-year-olds throughout the Bay Area who are disconnected from work and or school, and we try to reconnect them. We do this through one-on-one case management, skill building workshops that they participate in with a cohort of their peers, all going through the program together, adding that extra sense of community, which is so important. And the key core of our component is a 3-month paid internship to help them on their path of sustainability and economic opportunity. I work on the development and marketing team at New Door, so I do a lot, but a big part of my job is managing our junior board, which we call the Ambassadors Council. I'm here today with the chair of our Ambassadors Council, Alyssa Taylor, who is also one of our founding members. The Ambassadors Council was founded at New Door at the end of 2016, but really got on the ground up and running in 2017 as a small group of professionals who wanted to support our work in a more impactful way than just donating or volunteering their time. Since then, the Ambassadors Council has grown to over 20 members. We are now serving on 4 different committees, working on specific projects to support the organization. And in addition to this great committee work, last year, the Ambassadors Council raised over $60,000. And this year, they've doubled that number in fundraising, and it's only May, so that's really exciting. So since our founding in 2017, we've grown quite a bit and we've changed quite a bit, and I'm excited to share, the things that we've learned along the way.
Great, thank you so much. And thank you all for the wonderful intros, and we'll jump right into it. And I think, as you guys are on a virtual platform right now, I think one of the main questions that everyone is asking and would love any insight on is, when everything started happening and you were transitioning to the virtual platform, what was the first thing your organization started to do? And, was the associate board of your organization involved from the get-go? Mariah, do you want to start?
Sure, I'm still unmuted, I think. Okay, great. Sure, yeah. So, the transition to virtual for our organization was a big transition, I'd say for our program team in particular, because their work is so face-to-face, like that relationship is so important to the work that they do. But in terms of the Ambassadors Council, it wasn't a huge shift for us. We of course let everyone know that we would be moving to this remote work for the foreseeable future, and we had to reschedule our upcoming meeting to be a Zoom meeting. But most of our communication was through email or on the phone, other than our one in-person meeting a month. So moving to this virtual platform wasn't a huge shift for the Ambassadors Council. I will say one of the first things we did, even before shelter in place went into effect for our organization, was we had to figure out next steps for an event we were about to host as the Ambassadors Council. We had an event coming up. And so one of the first things we did was we got that event committee together and came up with a game plan for how we were going to deal with this. And were we going to cancel? Were we going to postpone? And so that was one of the first things we did. But as an Ambassadors Council, it hasn't been a huge transition. We haven't had to do a lot of work to move over. And I think that's part of what's been so successful. But Alyssa, I don't know if you have something to add to that.
No, I think that's a great overview, Mariah. I think the biggest challenge for us in terms of running the Ambassadors Council is the work that goes into making these meetings really effective. And so meeting planning and follow-up is now more important than ever. We really think through what messages we want our team to take away and what actions that we need to make sure we're really pointing them forward. And it's been great to see some of the results of this coming out through our technology fundraiser, making sure that our young people have access to technology to further tech literacy and be able to participate in our programs. And we're also fundraising for wages for our young people to make sure they continue to get paid. So we want to make sure we're really clear with our team about the expectations, but we also create space for our team. We do acknowledge this is a really odd time in life and a different place to be. And this is not just working from home. This is working from home in a crisis. And so we want to make sure that we give ourselves and our ambassadors the same flexibility to manage personal situations, but that we can also move forward as an Ambassadors Council as well.
Thank you for that. And Greg, I know you guys were very involved during this transition, and you work so closely with City Harvest, with the just development of programs and everything. Can you speak to your experiences?
Yeah, certainly. I think one thing to take into consideration is City Harvest runs on a very large budget. We're going to rescue around and deliver 72 million pounds of food this year, I think, Suzanne, right? And the junior board, which is Generation Harvest, is obviously a big part in terms of trying to go out and raise fundraising for that. But we're also volunteers, and we're marketers for the organization. So we're trying to achieve our goals of fundraising, as well as making sure that the messaging is getting out about City Harvest and that we're bringing new volunteers into the organization. So, as big events like the gala and Summer in the City, which is our junior board focused event, got canceled because of COVID-19, I would say that we were extremely fortunate to have a team of people on Generation Harvest that knew they needed to step up to the mission at hand, which was achieving our same goals in different ways. And I think what was really impressive to me was to see how each of our members dug into their respective companies and networks to be able to find new ways of fundraising, or we're looking for even ways of connecting with the government. I think that all starts really at recruiting top-notch talent, if you will, for your board. Some boards, and this is totally fine because obviously any charity work is great work, and at the end of the day, we do have a pretty strong filter for making sure that the people who are committing to join Generation Harvest are ready to be worker bees to a certain extent. They know we have a big financial goal to meet. They have commitments themselves they have to step up to. And then ultimately, there are work streams that get organized, whether it's around recruiting, our special events that we put on, volunteering, among other things, that they're responsible for, meeting their mark. So I think we're blessed by having people that want to be on Generation Harvest. We go through a robust interview process. You have to meet with a lot of people, and that results in people who are willing to be dynamic in these types of scenarios. So that translated for us into having people dig into their networks and finding out ways to do a virtual run, to do some type of maybe like a virtual Jeopardy show or something like that to raise funds in a different way this year for our various fundraising programs versus trying to sell tickets to our gala or to our event. Suzanne, I don't know if you have anything else you want.
Yeah, I think that's great. I would say, from the moment that this started, we really have led with the mission, with something that we always do at City Harvest. So, you know, I think our first update to Generation Harvest about COVID was like maybe March 12th or 13th, when we were still really figuring things out. That was obviously before shutdowns, before restaurants had closed, and we were like, hey, we want you to know we are preparing that this is going to be bad, and here's what we know, here's what we don't know. Greg, on his own, and this I think speaks to our incredible leadership and members, sent a follow-up email over the weekend saying, hey guys, I want you to know I started a Facebook fundraiser. I hope you'll do the same. I see restaurants are closing. I see a lot of people are going to be out of work. Please do what you can. And, you know, then I think it kind of just evolved from there. So as events were canceled, we let them know and said, this event is canceled, but we'd love for you to try this. We had a campaign that was supposed to launch in May. We just launched it early. We started just throwing resources and information at people and saying, here's what we know. You let us know what you want to do, and we'll do our best to support you.
Wonderful. And Amanda and Eddie, how about for you guys? What was the transition like for you?
Yeah, so I think it's probably a combination of things that people have said. As far as, you know, meetings and kind of the administration of things, we had already been actively using online systems even before all of this happened. So, you know, we would have our in-person meetings, but would always have an option for people to call into the meeting or video into the meeting. So I think from that perspective, it wasn't a big shift. The big shift for us was definitely in the actual execution of fundraising and engagement with the rest of our community. So, you know, we, like everyone else, really just started to think outside of the box. And I would say that's something that our associate board is really strong in, and just there's never a lack of creative ideas. And so just coming up with ideas for how to engage the community in a virtual way that would also allow us to stand out and would also allow us to continue to promote our mission is something that I think really came together just from the leadership on our associate board and definitely just people who are really dedicated to the work that we do. And, you know, with Keen being a volunteer-based organization, we already have a very strong culture of passionate people who are there because they want to be there and because they really care about the families and the work that we're doing. So I think that did make the transition for us easier. The challenge, I think, has really been more trying to figure out how to convert some of our bigger fundraising events into maybe smaller chunks and not have the same expectations for our virtual events as we would for in-person events. So I don't know if Eddie, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Thanks, Amanda. Yeah, you know, I think from my perspective, the biggest takeaway is you got to keep people engaged, and I think that's the hard part. And how you do that is you got to stay in front of them. So if it's, you know, weekly or biweekly check-ins, I think that's an important time to do now, especially in this time. From our perspective, like Amanda said, our meetings have been transitioned to over the phone or through Zoom, and our events as well. We've had to cancel our biggest associate board event for the year, which is back in March. We do a big comedy event. And, you know, as we think through what's next and how we transition, we've been trying to think through how we can do these type of things online. So things like having a music happy hour where we bring in people and they bring their friends to donate and kind of just sit through that has been helpful for us. And, you know, I would say just don't cast away any ideas that sound bad from the onset. Sometimes they just need a little bit of work to make them into something. So just it's a time to remain open and flexible, I think is really the main thing.
Thank you for that. And, you know, it sounds like for, you know, whichever organization you are, you know, being able to be quick on your feet and to have a robust agenda is key to, you know, keeping everyone engaged, but also just being open to the ideas of, you know, something that you may not even have thought about before. Why not try it? Or maybe it's worth a look into. So, you know, as you guys are pivoting and creating the different programs, and have you found that within the associate board, a lot of your roles and responsibilities have had to change, or, you know, have has the structure that you've had already in place worked well?
I'm happy to start. So I would say our associate board is pretty formal, which is actually really great for us. We started off very early on with creating bylaws, with creating a mission for the associate board that links to the overall mission of our organization, and then also just very clear roles with descriptions for everyone. So I think because we had a very strong structure in place before COVID and all of this kind of happened, it was easier for people to make some of these transitions. And Eddie's very humble, but I think that a strong leadership team on the associate board really plays a big part in keeping people engaged and kind of keeping that structure in place. So, our associate board is about 40 people right now, and everyone kind of knows what their role is and who to speak to about different things, whether it be events or fundraising. They kind of know who is their top person to go to. So I would say having a strong structure has been really beneficial to us.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, I think it's important that you stay clear and in front of your associate board and that you assign tasks and there's clear deliverables. A lot of people want to help, but they just have to be nudged sometimes, especially with some of the larger associate boards. There's a bit of groupthink at times. So you got to make sure that people know their tasks and their responsibilities and their roles, and that you set clear timelines that they can actually hit. And sometimes that means actually talking through what are the actual steps we have to put in place A to Z to make this type of event or make this fundraiser happen. So that's been kind of important.
Suzanne, Greg, how about for you guys?
Yeah, I would echo a lot of Amanda's comments. We had a structure in place. We had the bylaws. We had requirements for our members. Already having the workstream leads and co-leads get onto a call together to discuss the agenda prior to doing our broader group meeting, so that we had a dry run completed and we knew what the flow of that evening's meeting was going to be. Now it's just shifted to being a Zoom meeting as opposed to an online meeting. We're still communicating over email mostly. We're still using all those same tools we were before. One platform actually that we use and we're using prior to COVID-19 is Board Effect. So it's a great place where you can put your the meeting or follow-ups on there. And then, we're tracking each other via our work streams and just making sure that everybody's staying committed to, the requirements that we posted to them when they agreed to join Generation Harvest. And then also, trying to motivate each other by, kind of giving shout outs, at our meeting to, hey, this is what we were successful in, or these are the really outstanding efforts that happened among, the Generation Harvest group, in order to hopefully inspire people to emulate others.
Wow, thank you.
The shout outs are particularly effective, I find, and it's a great way to, first of all, just recognize the great work that's going on. And it also, I think, helps shine a light on the diversity of the ways that people are engaging across the junior board. So, we have someone who works at a large financial institution like Barclays. They're going to be doing something completely different, right, than someone who works for maybe like a smaller agency or a retail clothing company or something like that. So we're really trying to highlight the breadth of work that's going on. So then someone hopefully will prompt them to say, oh, I could maybe try something like that, or I couldn't do that, but this sounds interesting, in addition to recognizing the fantastic work. And that just happens via email or on our Zoom calls.
And more importantly, it just really fosters that sense of community, which now more than ever, that's so important to have.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And Mariah, Alyssa, how about for you guys?
So I would say, to Suzanne's point, and I was actually just typing in the chat, we completely agree. It's so important to provide just different forms of recognition, whether it's fundraising, whether it's doing advocacy work on behalf of the organization. We just see so many creative ways that our Ambassadors Council is advocating on behalf of New Door. I would say that for us, it hasn't been a big shift. Like Greg said, we had a great structure in place that was able to transition pretty well to a virtual environment. I just think that communication is now more important than ever, and being able to recognize, create opportunities for engagement. We really try to focus a lot of information sharing up front. So if we're going to be delivering a deck or a presentation, we share that out in our email in advance to make sure that we build in really intentional time for discussions and these ideas generation sessions, and being able to just spend time connecting with our teams. We also use Zoom for our discussions, and we use it in a lot of different ways. So we do breakout sessions where we'll connect with smaller groups of people. We use our chat function a lot to seek agreement or highlight messages that we find are important. In our Zoom instance, we also have the ability to give a thumbs up or the clapping reaction. And we find it's just a nice way to really keep people engaged throughout the call.
Yeah, that sounds great. And, you know, Mariah, you and I were talking the other day, and you were saying that what's funny is that you guys have actually noticed an increase in attendance for your associate board members, and just, you know, that involvement for people who may not have had the time just because of work or because of anything in life. But now you're seeing a lot more involvement.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our attendance was never too bad to begin with, but since we've moved to this virtual setting, we have almost every member in attendance. You know, maybe one or two folks won't be able to make it, but that's really high attendance for a junior board meeting, and really exciting. And I think, you know, part of that is that they can log on from anywhere. And it's just the ease of being there has, you know, it's so much easier now. And granted, this could also be because there isn't a whole lot else going on these days that they might be doing instead. But we've seen such increased engagement since we've moved to the virtual platform. And I would totally agree with Alyssa that front loading that information is really key to keeping folks engaged. I think when, you know, we were guilty of this before, where our meetings were very much like, you know, updates and then asking for their feedback, and updates and asking for their feedback. And it's really easy for members to tune out if you're just talking at them for an entire meeting. So if you front load your meetings with information and spend the rest of the meeting in dialogue, they sort of have to participate, and then they're going to be more engaged. And so that's a big piece of advice I would give everyone, is to, you know, you have to give updates. It's an important part of a meeting, but try and do that at the beginning and spend most of the time engaging members in conversation.
I'll give you one stat just to back that up from my professional life. If you're not engaging your members every 3 to 5 minutes, you will lose their attention. So when you think about setting up a meeting, even if you have 15-minute presentation blocks, asking your presenters to have some sort of interactive engagement while they're just gathering engagement in chat, or asking for a reaction, a thumbs up, raise your hand, every 3 to 5 minutes is a really different way of thinking about it than the typical way we think about organizing a meeting structure.
Thank you. And I think, you know, it can be said for us as well, is I think we've now started to, you know, find ourselves really relying on platforms like Zoom or, you know, other tech platforms. But I'm sure you guys have platforms that you use specifically, and I do hear the word Zoom being thrown out there a lot. Would you guys say that's the case? And how about for Keene and City Harvest?
Zoom has definitely been a big tool for us. I would say Zoom, and definitely, you know, emails have been like our main point of communication. And I think for some of those smaller discussions, actually just texting and getting on the phone and calling people. So I would say those have been like the really big things. And I agree with everyone that the communication piece is so important. So definitely, you know, having that screen fatigue sometimes, actually being able to just hop on the phone and talk to someone one-on-one on a phone call or even a conference call has also just been really nice and has been a good way to still effectively get ideas across and updates across quickly.
I echo what Amanda said. I mean, we have used Zoom. Greg mentioned Board Effect. I think the platforms are great, but to me, the platforms are less important than the content and the personalization. It's more about the expectations, the engagement, and the touch points. So it has been really great for me just to text. I've been like texting people pictures, or I've been hopping on the phone and just saying, I saw your fundraiser just hit $10,000. Thank you so much. That's incredible. Or, you know, I heard you went and volunteered with us. How did it go? You know, I think those just individual emails and phone calls are equally important, if not more important than the group communications, because that's where people really feel appreciated and they feel motivated. And then it also is an opportunity for us to like troubleshoot if there is something that's like, oh, I didn't know how to deal with this, or I actually think we could take it to the next level. Can you help me brainstorm this new idea? Like, to me, that's where a lot of the really exciting stuff happens. It's just like old-fashioned one-on-one communication.
That's great to hear. Well, I just want to be respectful of the time because we want to also hear from Jane. Is if you, all three of you, could share just, you know, maybe 3 pieces of takeaways that you could share with the audience about, you know, your experiences.
Yeah, I can get started here. So I would say that the 3 biggest takeaways or advice I'd give is, you know, stay in front of your associate board and be proactive. Don't be afraid to ask for help because you'll likely need a lot of it. And, you know, continue to stay curious and flexible to new ideas and things that are outside of how you've traditionally done things. But with that said, make sure that you try and remain as narrowly focused as possible so you don't lose kind of the mission and what you guys are trying to achieve.
Thank you, Eddie. That was wonderful.
I think on the city harvest front, you know, we mentioned it before, but really invest a ton of time into people and making sure to vet them, you know, for their level of passion for your organization, and then to overly, you know, over communicate what the requirements are, what the requirements will be in terms of time, financial commitments, and expectations, because it just obviously will help you in situations like these. That to us has been extremely helpful, and it's a place where we invest a ton of time, is making sure that we're bringing the right people on board, and then stay on top of those requirements. Like, you know, we were saying on the Zoom calls before, you know, the attendance is up, but we still take attendance and we still monitor it, and then every year we do a check-in with our members and you know, say, okay, well, you were there for 50% of the meeting. Like, other people are there for 75% of the meetings, and are you still interested in being a part of this team or not? And you know, finding out whether there's any other issues that are preventing them from being able to commit the right time to the organization. But we take, you know, minutes and also distribute those still, and then you know, communicate the wins too, like we were saying with the shout outs, and making sure that people are aware of some of the positive activities that are going on within your organization during a challenging time, to give them ideas and inspire them to be productive members of your team.
And I'll also just add, I think those are fantastic. I couldn't agree more. I'll just add that, you know, to Eddie's point about just being creative and playing to people's strengths, you know, everyone has a different network. Everyone has different assets that they bring to the table. And it's really, I think, helpful for us as at Generation Harvest to be able to go to people and, you know, and say, oh, like, you know, maybe you're able to help mobilize your company given who your employer is, or maybe you're not able to help mobilize your company, but I know that you are organizing an online poker night with your friends. How can City Harvest get involved in that? Or your friend has a really large social media following. Can we like maybe get promoted on their Instagram or their Twitter page? Just kind of knowing everyone's strengths, and then going out, like just asking and saying, hey, this is an urgent time, we need your help. Leading with the mission and always coming back to that has served us really well.
Thank you, Suzanne.
And I'll
Mariah.
wrap up from New Door Ventures. I think that there have been great takeaways shared so far, so I don't have too much to add, but from our perspective, meeting planning and follow-up is now more important than ever. It's really important to leverage the tools that you have access to, whether it's Zoom or any other platform, to create a better interaction with your council. And just acknowledging that this isn't an easy time, and creating space for you and your team, doing check-ins, communicating wins, and recognizing folks as they go above and beyond on behalf of your organization.
I just wanted to add one more thing. Just for us, I think from an organization perspective and a leadership perspective, just constantly pouring into your own people as well. It's easy for us to get very focused on our mission and serving the population that we're designed for, but remembering that, you know, the team of people that you have are volunteering time to you, and taking that time to kind of pour into those people, setting up internal events where, you know, people can just come together and hang out and have a good time, and, you know, just really building that sense of community, so that people want to stay connected, and people want to stay connected to your mission and doing the work for you and with you.
Thank you for sharing all of that, every one of you. It's so appreciated. And, you know, echoing all of what you guys have said, is communication is key, and being able to connect with that person is so important. And that being said, I'd love to give the stage now over to Jane Searing from Deloitte. Jane, you know, you, I'm sure, have also so many takeaways, just especially given our conversation yesterday about the things that you see now that everyone is on a virtual platform. So I'll let you take it away.
Great. So thank you for inviting me today. I am relatively new to Deloitte. I am the leader, and I guess I'm the founder of the Center for Excellence in Philanthropy at Deloitte, which is akin to and works with the Monitor Institute, which you all received some handouts, information from the Monitor Institute. And we also provided you a handout that actually I got from the New York office, or I guess it's the office of the New York State Attorney General, which I thought was very helpful on how to conduct board meetings remotely. And I thought it was helpful information because, you know, I don't know if all of you have seen, there's a comedian that has a program online where she comes back and talks to, it's her future self, comes back and talks to her prior self and interviews her and says, you know, how's it going so far this year? And she says, wow, those wildfires in Australia in 2020, they're a big deal. It's like, yeah, you're gonna rethink what's a big deal in 2020. Those wildfires, yeah, they were big, but things are gonna be different. You know, I'm gonna spend a lot of time on an airplane. Are you though? Are you really? It's just, you know, what you think is significant early on in 2020, things have changed a lot. And, you know, listening to you all talk and sharing your perspectives, things, you know, when I started at Deloitte in December, what I thought what it was going to look like, it doesn't look like that at all. Things have changed dramatically. And, you know, it's always been my passion to work with exempt organizations. I started in public accounting back when we used pencil paper, and my big job was adding up columns of numbers, and computers were something big that sat on your desk. And now we carry them around in our purses or pocketbooks. But I've served on nonprofit boards from, you know, from Arboretum Foundations to Center for Autism. I have 2 grown children now. One's an attorney. I'm not an attorney, but I created one. I have my master's in tax, and I still serve on exempt organization boards. But mostly what I work with now is private foundations, funders, public charities. And what I try to do is, you know, help organizations and their funders to do philanthropy the best way that they possibly can, to be effective. So over the years, when I think about nonprofits, you know, usually it's, you know, very passionate people who serve on the boards, who are very focused on the mission. So when you all were going through, you know, what you were talking about, it was very telling that, you know, first thing that I think Greg started with was the mission, you know, being curious, be focused. And, you know, I have many organizations where the board, the very first thing they do when they convene is they restate the mission. So they start every board meeting with reciting the mission of the organization. So that's front and center every time that they meet and convene. And I think that's a great practice, so that every time that they meet, they talk about that first and foremost. And one of the things that it does is it prevents mission creep. So they know that that's what they're there for, and that's why they're there. And it's on the agenda, and it's on printed at the top of a lot of boards' agendas. So, you know, and when we were getting ready to have this call, and we were talking about, well, what, you know, who all is a member of CariClub, what does CariClub do? And they told me that a lot of financial institutions and attorneys, you know, law firms are a member, and they, you know, it's a pairing organization. And it brought to mind that somebody told me one time, and it was an attorney who actually shared this with me, that everybody wants an attorney or a CPA on their board until they have one. and it's true, because, you know, and then you know, the thing is that because when things get rough or there's a controversy, you know, the attorneys pull out their, yeah, but then this is what the rule is, and this is what Robert's Rules of Order says, and then the accountants pull out, well, this is what GAAP says, and this is how we do our budgeting, right? And you know, because, you know, when things get heated, we pull out our bag of tricks and how we know things, and then the mission people pull out the mission, and that, you know, really what we fundamentally believe in is the organization and what we're trying to accomplish. So anyway, what we're trying to do is, you know, how do we get through and reorganize ourselves so that we're doing what's best for our organizations, because we're dealing with a whole new world. So, you know, on the boards that I serve on right now, what we're trying to do is stay connected. And what I heard a lot of you say is that, you know, there are some silver linings. And that's what I'm hearing from the organizations that I've been working with. A lot of people that struggled to get to every single board meeting or every committee meeting, a lot of times because they are remote, they're able to attend more regularly, and because they're able to attend virtually. So they're not fighting traffic, they're not, you know, they're not struggling to get there because, you know, they just have to get off their last Zoom meeting to get to the meeting. Now, actually delivering services, that's becoming a much bigger challenge, especially when you think about organizations like the ones that are on the call today, you know, food pantries, Second Harvest type organizations that are dealing with children who are at risk, especially, you know, children like not my child anymore, he's a grown adult, but children with autism, you know, they're at home with their families, and these can be some of the most challenging children of all, and they aren't going to school anymore, so those parents get no reprieve at all. And so, you know, if those families don't have Zoom coming into the home, the parents and the care providers that are not family members have no visibility to what's happening to those children anymore. So, you know, that's some of the tragedy of, you know, kids that are high needs kids, is that there's no other adults who have eyes on them sometimes. So, you know, Zoom, this crisis is, we've got people that are vulnerable that don't have outside eyes on them right now, that's unfortunate. And I don't pretend to have any answers to those questions. But when we think about, you know, how do we keep our organizations alive and vibrant, you know, Zoom is great, and we've been using it to the best of our abilities. We need to think about how we are going to stay connected, though, and how do we try to get technology into the hands of, you know, these other populations that we would like to. I know that we do have some funders and are looking at, you know, providing technology and getting it, you know, that last mile into the hands of the people that really need it. I have one client that actually donated iPads and iPhones and to get technology so that they could check it out and give them to people to have in their homes so that they could have access to learning. some of the poorest people, they may not, because they do live in an urban area where they can have technology in their homes. Being able to connect with your funders, going back through your list of people who have contributed to your organization, go back through that list, connect with them by phone, by internet, get in touch with them, phone them, explain to them what your needs are, and ask them to give. Alternative fundraising. I heard some suggestions today that were very good ones. Some of the other ones that I've participated in, and you may think, well, gosh, how did you participate in online fundraising already? Because it is the season, it's gala season, and they're already coming up with ones. Did an online cooking fundraiser, which was a hoot, but it was also a bit of a disaster. I have some suggestions on how to do that better, but they had a celebrity chef who so we paid to do a cooking class with a celebrity chef. They should have had us do the prep beforehand. And so for several days beforehand, they should have said, and here's how you do the prep. And they could have had one of his assistants, walk us through, yes, you need to do all this prep beforehand. They sent us emails, which we ignored. And so we didn't do the prep beforehand. So we're frantically chopping, cooking, doing other things before, and trying to keep caught up while he is leisurely drinking a martini, and we're frantically trying to catch up on how to make the thing that we're supposed to make. And it was a bit of a disaster. We ate, but it was crazy. So, if they did the online beforehand, but it was fun. If you have connections to somebody that's a famous chef, you can do an online, and people will pay for that. Also online concerts, if you have somebody that's a musician, people will pay to see an online concert, and they are not expensive because they aren't paying for a great big venue. And a lot of people can attend those. I expect to see masks with little red noses in the middle of them coming out. I expect to see all kinds of masks that are branded for all kinds of nonprofits coming out, ones with puzzle pieces for autism. We'll see all kinds of masks, because I think masks are a part of our lives. And if you wear a bikini, you've seen the trikini, it's a 3-piece, and your mask matches your bathing suit. I have seen those. I'm not probably going to be sporting one of those, but a mask that matches your bathing suit, whatever you wear. But a 3-piece bathing suit is our new thing, apparently. But masks of all stripes we will see. But I heard on those final things, leveraging your tools, but you should also be leveraging your assets. All of your organizations have assets of all sorts, including your logo and your name, your brand, your image. Being able to assess that. So on your board, your associate board, you should be making a list. Who knew how valuable a pink ribbon could be? Pink ribbon has a lot of value. People, and one of the ways that organizations can make money is being involved in commercial co-ventures. And those commercial co-ventures raise significant amounts of money. And a commercial venture is where an otherwise company that is just selling their wares, their services, their goods, they pay a charity an amount of money. They go out to the public and say, for every one of these we sell, we will contribute a percentage or a fixed amount of money to a charity. And they have the charity's name or logo on their good that they're selling or their service. As a kid, I collected Campbell's soup labels. And for every Campbell's soup label we turned in, my school got money. You all see things like, the Yoplait yogurt lids, the pink ones. If I see a pink one versus a non-pink one, I tend to buy the pink one, because I know that when I turn those in, that those, when you do that, breast cancer, they get money for that. That's commercial co-venturing. So if you have a brand that is resonant with organizations, with buyers, that's a thing that is valuable for your organization. People will tend to buy, if there's 2 identical things on the shelf and one will support a food pantry versus one is just unbranded, people will reach for the one that's going to support the food pantry in general. Also in grocery stores, sometimes you can go in and put your coupons on the grocery store with a little label that says, don't use the coupon. the coupon, the money will go for charity instead. And that's another fundraiser that we see. I don't know if that's going to be allowed in the times of COVID, but I've seen organizations do that as well. So that's just a coupon clipping fundraiser. But there's so many ways that organizations can raise money. Some cautions though, I did hear you say that you're allowing people to set up fundraisers in your name. You do want to get ahead of that. And what I mean by get ahead of that is you do want to have language set up in advance that you are keeping track of who's raising money on your behalf, so that you're managing your own message. You don't want people out there just randomly raising money on your behalf. There's a lot of fraudsters out there. There's more out there than you would imagine. You need to be looking out there and saying, are people raising money and saying they're giving money to our charity, that they're pocketing that? There's more of that goes on than you would think. And it's really unfortunate. But you want to make sure that that's not going on, that there's not people, and there's a lot of sound-alike charities out there. So make sure that there's nobody out there raising money on your behalf. And if they are raising money on your behalf, that you've authorized them to do that. And ideally, you'd like them to do it through an authorized portal, and the money comes directly to you. They're not collecting it and then turning it over to you, that they're using your portal and they're setting it up, and then it's coming directly into your account. And part of the reason is because you want to know who the donors are. So they're setting it up, they're giving it out to, they're sending the message out to their friends, their acquaintances, but then you're able to capture who's actually donating to your organization, and you're giving the donor acknowledgement letters if somebody's giving at a significant enough level, that you're giving the proper donor acknowledgement level, or proper donor acknowledgement letters. So, that's the other thing you really want to keep on top of, because fundamentally, your organization still, whether you're a true fiduciary and you have a board seat where you have all of the duties of loyalty, obedience, and care, if you're not there now, you likely will be at some point. So you might as well get to a place where you're familiar with those fiduciary duties of being a full board member, and that you're used to stopping and saying, before I dive off into doing fundraising, I am recognizing that there are duties of loyalty, which is duties of loyalty to the law. We have to be aware of what all the fundraising responsibilities are, and are we registered everywhere we're supposed to be registered, and we're not just willy-nilly going off and doing things that might put our organization in a bad light. So, thinking about, are the financial systems in place? Have we got a trustworthy system that we can, where the money is actually going to come to us in a reasonable manner? And if we are entering into a commercial co-venture with a for-profit company, do we have an agreement in place where we know how they're going to use our name? And likewise, we can put their name on our website, and we're proud to do so. So, build up those new pathways for connections. So, your website's up, that, it's secure. You have a portal for people that need to access information, and only people that should have access do have access. I think that I have gotten through my notes, and we are close to time. Are there questions that have come in that we want to ask?
Yeah, thank you for that, Jane. That was so insightful.
Kind of a run down the list, but
that was really great, and you really touched upon a lot of things that maybe that are not top of mind right now, especially as people are scrambling, during COVID. So we do have a question that's come in. The question is, recently started a Young Patrons program for the Red Cross earlier this year. We had a successful kickoff, but engagement has been challenging given COVID. Do you have any other suggestions, advice as to how I can increase engagement and grow the group? And Keene, City Harvest, New York Ventures, do you guys have any input on that as well?
Sure. So I think it kind of goes back to what I was saying about making sure that you're pouring into your people. So when we first started our associate board, it was really a collaborative effort. So I had created kind of a vision of what I had hoped the associate board would look like, but we just kind of put a call out to people and said, here is our mission. This is what we would like it to look like, but we also want to know what you can bring to the table. And how can you shape this? And so I think getting that initial buy-in, like Jane was saying, is incredibly important, and having people from the start feel like they are part of the process. So not just bringing something to them that's here, this is what we want you to do, and this is what we want from you, but seeing what people are able to give, want to give, and allowing them to be part of making the kind of coming up with the vision itself, of course, with guidance and making sure that it's in line with your overall organizational mission, but definitely getting that initial buy-in and building communities. So before we even had our associate board reaching out to our community, we did a number of internal events that were just for them to brainstorm, to share ideas. And I think, what Eddie was saying, no idea is too crazy initially. Everyone should have this space to share even the wacky ideas that may never come to fruition, but feeling like they can come to a place and share those ideas and contribute is incredibly important. So just getting people involved, and feeling like they own a piece of it, feeling like they have ownership in either an event or ownership in the part of the mission of the organization. Just giving that kind of ownership and community is important.
Thank you for sharing that. And Mariah, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so I was just reading through these additional notes that came in, and it sounds like you had all these in-person ways to keep members engaged. And I was just thinking to myself, why don't you just ask them, like, look, things have changed, the world is a different place, let's spend some time brainstorming ways that we can still support the organization. I mean, use your junior board members and use their really smart brains to come up with other ways to support the organization. And you can also reach out to the staff members at your organization. One of the things that we did is we reached out to everyone on staff and we said, hey, what is something you would love to be done, but just don't have the capacity to work on? And they came up with a list of tons of ideas. And then we whittled down that list to, what's something that our junior board could actually work on, and we gave them those projects. So that's something that you could do too. Go to your staff, ask them what's a need that they have, and bring that to your junior board and have a discussion about it. It doesn't have to be a homework and assignment. It can be a conversation with them. This is a need we have. Does this sound like something you guys would be interested in working on? And then just go from there.
Thank you. And, the question posed to, the associate board members, Greg, Eddie, Alyssa, are there any other tips that you can offer?
Really liked Amanda's suggestion around, giving some people work that, they can own. Same thing where we had worked. So whether it's related to special events or volunteering or recruiting, there's one work stream lead who's been with the organization longer, has proven, that they're committed and feel responsible for making sure they deliver on whatever the goal is for that particular work stream. And then post our broader meetings, those work streams are all having separate calls, and they're trying to come up with what they're going to present to the broader board at our call it semi-monthly meetings, and getting work done in between. So we the organization aspect of what we're trying to do as a group through the year.
I don't know how many of you have your associate board members serve on committees of the regular board, but that's another area where having the associate members serve on the committees of the regular board also is a great way of building your board, whether it's on, because it sounds like you've got people from the finance and legal community, having them serve on your audit committee, your finance committee, your investment committee, as just a way of building them and giving them exposure to the regular board. that's just a good way just to build and to have integration between the regular board and your associate board members.
Yeah, it's a good point for City Harvest. We have one of, at least it's myself plus another Generation Harvest member attending the board meetings when they occur. So we to see what we're doing as a group. Did you lose me?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, so if you could maybe repeat the last part.
The last part was the board members come to the junior board or the associate boards meeting to see what type of work we're doing. So they rotate, so there's two people that will come and sit on the board, and that's created some amazing connectivity and help to elevate the status of the junior board within the organization.
Well, I'm just looking at the time, and we are, a few minutes past the hour, and I want to be respectful of everyone. I know we all have busy schedules. So again, a big thank you to all of you, Deloitte, City Harvest, Keene, New York, New Ventures, just being able to hear from you and, listen to the insights that you can offer is beyond amazing. And at CariClub, our goal is to continue having these conversations and to continue being a resource for all things nonprofits, aside from just associate boards. And that being said, and going off of what you guys are suggesting of constant communication, is we will be sending out an additional survey, which also, think of it as a follow-up to the survey we sent at the beginning of the pandemic. Again, things are changing now, so we want to understand what your needs are and how they've changed. So please watch out for that. And we'll also be sending a recording of this webinar. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me or go to CariClub.com and we'll take it from there. Thank you again, everyone. And thank you so much for your time.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.